Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another Star Wars video. Today we return to Andor Season 2. I have a crazy theory, and if true, it might be the biggest plot twist of the entire show. I might be crazy, and I could be wrong. So what am I talking about? Cast your minds back to the dinner party scene. Karn, Dedra, and Syril. A comedic masterpiece. It's so bizarre and so weird it gives the holiday special a run for its money. And not to mention how phenomenal the acting is. Catherine Hunter as the narcissistic, self-centered Karn, always trying to make Syril feel uncomfortable, undermined, and humiliated. I mean, it really is no wonder Syril turned out the way he did. I feel really bad for him, and if he ever decides to get the help he needs, yeah, that therapy bill is going to, really rack up fast. But little did Edie know that she would soon meet her match, in her soon-to-be daughter-in-law Dedra Meero. As long as she's around, Dedra isn't gonna stand for Edie stepping all over Syril and continue to eat away at his ego, or whatever's left of it. Enough of the abuse and enough of these games. And you know guys, given how cutthroat Dedra can be, it's no surprise she was able to shut Edie up. But the scene was a lot of fun. It was so well written, like a high quality sitcom, and the memes that came from it were beautiful. Mwah, chef's kiss. But there is one bit of dialogue you might have overlooked. In the scene where Edie is dripping, never thought I'd say that, she mentions Syril's absentee father, who was rather adventurous and one day just up and left them. She mentions how important it is for kids to experience mother's love. And she uses it against Dedra, because Dedra's parents were arrested when she was 3, and she was raised in a kinder block. But then, Edie once again brings up the mysterious Uncle Harlo, a character brought up in Season 1, the one responsible for giving Syril his current job at the Bureau of Standards. But this is a character we know very little about. He's a character who from a distance looks after Edie and her son, but we've never seen him. And in Season 1 there were tons of theories as to who this character might be, but I always assumed he was unimportant. Just a Karn family member who Edie brings up to elevate herself. But here's where I'm starting to think there's a reason Tony Gilroy keeps writing him into the show. And not just this, we now know he has a criminal record, because Dedra said she looked him up, and it turns out his ISB file is less than exemplary. So I was rewatching this scene, and I realized that everyone Edie brings up is just so that she can talk about how amazing she is. Like I said, she's a narcissist. She has really bad main character syndrome. Everyone in her life is a pawn for her own purposes. But then I thought about the two men she mentioned, Syril's father and Uncle Harlo. And so here's my theory. Because Tony Gilroy keeps saying there are a lot of plot twists, a few connections we didn't see coming. What if one of these men is someone we already know? I've seen lots of theories that Harlow might be Palpatine, but what if it's Luthen? Or what if Luthen is Syril's dad? Think about it. We're not given too much info about who this guy was, but if you put together some of the clues, you can kind of see the irony if this were to be the case. Edie says Syril's father fancied himself an adventurer. It was an expensive delusion. Could this be in reference to Luthen's antique business? The series goes out of its way to show us some of the more valuable items. For instance, the Chandrilan Guard, our leader's wedding. If that's true, even Edie didn't know the reality of what Luthen was really doing, founding a rebel cell. Now Tony Gilroy also said, we're gonna find out about Luthen's backstory in Season 2. I wonder if part of his sacrifice, that he mentioned in the first season, was giving up on his wife and kid.
Kindness, kinship, love.
It's a wild shot in the dark theory, but I can absolutely imagine the creators of the show making this connection. At first glance, Luthen and Syril are nothing alike, but they were shaped by their environments. And I should also say Luthen Rael is not his real name. There is a chance he is part of the Karn family, whether he's Syril's dad or his Uncle Harlo. And even though Luthen is a rebel, he has multiple personas, and he's well connected, especially through his spies. So it's very plausible he's the one who was able to get Syril the job. I guess the thing for me is that we know so little about Luthen's real life, his real name, where he comes from, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to things Tony Gilroy said, but it's been revealed in much the same way Mon Mothma goes public, so does Luthen, so the truth will be revealed, even if this theory is incorrect. And even in the first 3 episodes of this season, we see how nervous Luthen is. Is he getting a bit too cocky? Being out and about, making public appearances like this, in spite of Take Holmer's death, is this going to come back to bite him? Something or someone is a loose thread. I've theorized Saw Gerrera. I think he's gonna throw Luthen under the bus, but could it be his own doing? One too many mistakes. So I reckon he's enough of a question mark that anything is plausible. And the craziest thing about it is that I don't even think Edie knows who Luthen is. Not really. Syril and Luthen are symbolic opposites. Luthen fights for chaos, a rebellion against the Empire, while Syril, being naive, clings to order, obedience to imperial law. He's got the imperialistic mindset, attracted to its fascism. Unknown to him, there might be a literal father-son split in ideologies. But considering there is a very good chance Luthen is going to be caught and dies this season, if Syril later discovers who Luthen really is, it would create a devastating yet fascinating drama. It's such a compelling theory, but I will just say, my dear friends, it's pure speculation. It's simply where my mind went during my most recent rewatch. But in the context of the themes of the episode, the mention of Syril's dad and uncle could be to demonstrate that Edie is stuck in the past, perpetually a victim, never being able to move forward. That being said, the question of Syril's dad, and indeed Uncle Harlo, is a bit like the mystery of Cassian's sister. It was always meant to be a plot device. Unanswered questions the characters have to move beyond. Their motivations, and not necessarily mysteries that Tony Gilroy is going to answer. Of course we're curious. Of course we want to know. But sometimes these characters are just question marks to develop known characters. But returning to the scene in question, a recent interview with Denise Goff and Carl Solar shed some light on how fans should interpret it. They revealed that on set, they were trying to weird each other out, and they wanted to show how Syril has had a ball and chain around his neck his entire life. And now it's gone from his mother to Dedra. They're both controlling in different ways, and they both want to mold Syril to be their perfect version of him. Denise said this: "Unfortunately, I have to manipulate and control him. But from those 3 episodes you think, okay, they're weird. I don't know what they do to each other or with each other, but they also get each other." And in the conversation with Edie, Dedra is dividing up the pieces of territory. It's saying, I'm freeing you from that, but in my way. And something to note is that Edie is very intelligent. She's very perceptive and bright. She's playing the game of how far can I take things? How far can I push to get my own way? But in meeting Dedra, Edie realized she couldn't do that. Someone had the gall to finally say no to her. And so going back to my crazy theory, I just can't imagine Luthen and Edie being compatible in any kind of way, unless she responded differently to Luthen. Luthen is assertive, and Edie responds to that. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think Luthen could be Syril's dad, or maybe Uncle Harlo? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.